You're listening to Parasearch Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
It's Monday evening, and you're listening to Joe and Gemma on the Supernaturelle Show.
Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of the Supernaturelle Show, and the last, I might add. Yes, that's right, peeps. This is my last show for the Supernaturelle Show. Just to start off, it's been amazing, so thanks for having me and thanks for listening in every week. On to tonight's show, though. Tonight's show is going to be quite an interesting one, I think. I am joined tonight by the lovely Steve Parsons. Good evening, Steve.
I'm a bit depressed. Have I killed the Supernatural Show?
Yeah, you come on it once and that's it. It's gone. It's dead.
Well, there we are. And thank you for listening to the Supernatural Show. Tune in next week when we'll be having a live ventriloquist act.
Love to.
Hey, the BBC used to do that, you know.
I know.
What was it? Educating Archie.
Is that what it was called? Educating
Yeah.
Archie? I can't even speak. This is starting
Educating
well,
Archie,
isn't it?
a live ventriloquist act on the radio.
Educating Gemma. That's what I'll call the next one.
I didn't see its lips move.
I could be like Joey Essex of Grimsby.
Oh, what? Don't do yourself down, love.
So, Steve, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So
We're enjoying the sunshine and the tourists who are sort of daytime ghost hunters.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly... Oh, look, I'm really sorry, but the police are now coming for you, Steve. Can you hear them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all the radioactive stuff.
It really is. It's because Steve's planning his own little Chernobyl over there. So anyway, let's move on to the show. So, Steve, for anybody that doesn't know you, can you just give us just a brief rundown on who you are and what you do?
Okay. Well, I like to still use that old-fashioned term, ghost hunter. It's something I've been doing since I was a child, over 40 years ago. I used to just like going to see ghosts when I was little. Weird, I suppose. Ghosts and aeroplanes, that was always it.
Ghosts and aeroplanes.
Yeah, there's a link there somewhere, I just can't think of it.
Yeah.
But then later, I decided that I wanted to see a ghost. And I always felt a little bit sort of hacked off that I didn't. And so that sort of kind of got me curious as to why I couldn't just go and see a ghost. Mm-hmm. And then I started to study a little bit more. I read more books, went to more places, read more books, and then realized that if you were going to do it, if you're going to actually try to understand ghosts, then you had to approach it in a more serious way rather than just sitting in haunted buildings, which is a pretty cool way of spending a night, but nonetheless. And so 27 years ago now, I think it was, myself and Anne Winsper, who we'd met in another paranormal group, which was awful. It was really bad. And we ended up getting thrown out. So we decided...
Not like you, Steve.
Well, the problem was, Anne and I were interested in technology and using video photography, thermometers, those sort of things to try and measure and document what was taking place. The only thing we were able to document with the video cameras we were using, which back then were really crude, we're talking like VGA quality cameras, was some of the rest of the group messing about, creating stuff and moving stuff and faking stuff, and so we got slung out. So we decided to form our own group. So we called it Paranormal Science, which became abbreviated to Parascience, and the rest is history, I guess.
So they say.
Yeah. But at heart, I'm just a ghost hunter. I've written a few books and I've written some articles and I've done some television, but that's just sideline stuff. You know, it's
Steve, I love the way you make it out that you literally just stand in cold, dark spaces of a night time saying, is there anybody there? When that's not quite the case, is it?
absolutely not. In fact, that's the last thing I would do. But going to a place, you know, this idea of wandering around aimlessly around a building, or sitting there going, is anybody there? Can you hear my voice? Can you knock on the wall? Can you talk to my audio recorder? There's the thing. Why do people call out? You know, I mean, they call out and then they put a tape recorder there. So, like, is the ghost deaf? Can you hear me? And then, like, and ghosts, of course, or ghost hunters, I think they must think that the dead. I mean, I mean, think about it. We mean you no harm. What are you going to do? They're dead. Come on. I mean, you know, the ghosts are sitting there going, come on, give it your best shot. What are you going to do?
Starting as we mean to go on, Steve. Is that what we're doing here?
But no, I mean, seriously, the best way to understand an experience is to, because we kind of never get to be there when the original witness has their experience.
No, never.
So
unless you are the original witness.
Unless you are But
highly unlikely these days.
In most eventualities, somebody says, I'm experiencing something in my house, workplace, whatever. And you go along and you're really going to try to understand the nature of their experience. So you'd talk to them, listen to them. You would visit the location because you want to try and understand, you know, stand where they stood, sat where they sit.
But you wouldn't just visit the location at a night time either, would you? You know, you would go several times.
Well, I mean, I would start off by going when they have their experiences. So if they're watching Coronation Street, having the tea or having the breakfast, that would be the time I would start to go, because you want to try and get the closest you can to the original experience. Yeah,
you need to recreate, so to speak.
Now, I mean, people report ghosts at night, so you would have to be there at night. And in fact, historically, ghosts have always been associated with the darkness and midnight and the witching hour, you know, within the Gothic horror stories, right back to the very first ghost story that we have on record, which took place in Athens in the 1st century BC, which the chain rattling ghost that haunted the house in Athens and was each night, and nobody would live there. And then Athenodorus, who was, I guess, an early ghost hunter, went along and sat there at night with his writing desk and his candle, or whatever the ancient Greeks used. I'm sure they didn't use full spectrum cameras back then.
What, you mean they didn't have K2 meters?
No.
You are joking.
I mean, that's the weird thing, isn't it? I'm going to sit there. I'm going to talk to some flashing lights.
We're digressing already. Look.
Yeah, try not to.
Yeah. So.
Try not to. No, I mean, you go when the witness has their experience, and you try to understand by putting yourself into as close as you can to the original experience, to try to understand it. And that's really all you can do. All of the rest of the flim-flammy stuff you see on television is that. And the idea that we're going to do an experiment. I mean, an experiment has to have a hypothesis and has to have a rationale and has to have a protocol and a method. An experiment, I mean, you see them. Join us at this ghost hunt. We're going to try a dangerous new experiment. Well, it's not an experiment, is it? But nailing the medium to a ceiling can be quite good fun. I once had at university once. I had an idea for hooking a medium up to the mains electricity supply and a lie detector. So if they were telling lies, you would give them 240 volts. That'll encourage them to tell the truth. But the ethics committee said that wasn't allowed. You're not allowed to.
I can't for the life of me understand why they said that, Steve. I mean, honestly, just wanting to electrocute people, you know, I really don't understand why that didn't meet with the health and safety.
I mean, we've tried different ways of understanding the nature of the human experience, the ghostly experience. I mean, we've had investigators wearing full electroencephalograph headsets. So we're recording brainwave patterns to see if there is a difference during the experience that they claim. We've wired investigators, our own team members, with body thermometers.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to, if they say, oh, the room felt warmer or colder, or I suddenly feel an icy chill, then we should be able to document that. And so we've tried, that's where we do use equipment, is to try to get inside the experience, to try to measure what we can measure, because we can measure the environment for certain. We can measure temperature, we can measure humidity, we can measure sounds, we can measure, and I'm talking about audible sounds, not this electronic voice phenomena. So if people say that they hear footsteps, then obviously we want to try and record them, and then we can look back at them in more detail.
So it's not only that, you can view the sound waves as well.
We can do far more than that.
So you've got a visual.
Yeah, you can do an awful lot more with a sound wave, in terms of using it to understand what really took place. Because the sounds that you hear can actually be very misleading. I remember one on an investigation over 20 years ago, where one of the members of the team had said that they heard footsteps running down a flight of steps, and they had a recorder nearby. We learned a very important lesson from this, but nevertheless, we played the recordings back, and there, because they said that they had this, they'd written that they got this footsteps running down the stairs, and it did sound like somebody running quickly downstairs, down this wooden flight of stairs, and it was all very intriguing. Luckily, an audio recorder on its own just gives you sound, but we had a video camera nearby, and the video camera showed what really happened. And an investigator further up had dropped a pen or a pencil.
Right, and there you go. And it had rolled down. And
it bounced down every step on the stairs. Now, the one at the top didn't think to record what they'd done. They just went, oh, bollocks, I've dropped me a pencil. And picked up another one. The one at the bottom didn't see what took place, but their sound recorder recorded it. Yeah. So what we did after that is we always backed up a sound recorder with a video camera, but also we changed the way we used video recorders, because we realized that if you just lay your sound recorder on a bare wooden stair, you're actually picking up a lot of sound through the case of the recorder rather than through the microphone. Yeah,
you've got the vibrations. And
so we went out and bought, or we made everybody in the team go out and buy a bath sponge. And then we put the recorders on bath sponges, and it's something we still do to this day.
Oh, you do know that there's going to be loads of people now going out.
There are lots of groups who've we've told down the years and have realised actually it makes perfect sense, because you want to isolate the. But no, we don't tend to do much in the way of wandering around. In fact, our group operates in a way that, we stay in the same place. We'll put investigators. They always work in pairs. They're never allowed to go on their own to anywhere. We don't, lone vigils, forget that. Utter waste of time. Because firstly, you're going to be scared. Even if you're the big brave, you're unnerved, you're unbalanced because you're on your own. If something happens, there is no other person to back up what you're saying.
Nope.
So there's a weakness there immediately in the evidence. So what we always do is we stick people in pairs around the place, and we just leave them there for the whole time. Obviously, they're allowed a break.
What, you allow that? You're very generous.
Yeah, we allow them. Well, in fact, we let them sort their own breaks out. We have we have a position in our team which it's not a fixed position. It's actually the position of floater.
Yeah.
Which is a very unfortunate title, but it describes the job nicely. Because the floater covers. So if you've got two people and one needs a toilet break or is going off to get hot drinks for the two of them,
you've got your floater to come in.
Will float in and bob about and cover them until they come back. So who's going to be this week's floater? Floater of the week.
Floater of the week.
Well, we used to have member of the month.
Floater of the week. I like it a lot. So when you're now going off on investigations, because you do still investigate as a team, don't you?
We still investigate, absolutely, yes. I mean, we've never, when we say we investigate as a team, Parascience has never had more than a dozen members. And we've never used all of them. I think, no, sorry, I tell a lie, we have on one investigation. because we will try and use the fewest number of people that we can possibly get away with to cover the job. Bearing in mind, we always have to have 2 in each place.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I think most of our investigations would involve 2 or 4 people. Because the more people you introduce into the location, the more you're changing the location, changing the situation, and the more confusion, that you put in it.
Yeah.
So it would be a very rare case in where all of the team would be out together.
Yeah.
That's only happened with the Camel Earth shipyard, because it was such a vast location that we had to treat it actually as 4 separate investigations running simultaneously with one another. But that was a long time ago, before Most Haunted came along and spoiled it.
Other networks are available, just saying.
No, I'm just saying Most Haunted came along. Well, we take an event.
So okay, right. Let's
location.
You've mentioned them, so let's move on. Let's discuss them and get them out of the way. So, what is it about them specifically do you think ruined ghost hunting, if you will?
They didn't ruin it. I don't want to sound, everybody, it's cool to knock Most Haunted, and it has got a bit crazy in latter years, but
completely agree.
You look back to that very first series with Jason, and they were just doing what we were doing. They were going to haunted buildings, and they were seeing what took place, and they were just letting the cameras record what they were doing. As the series became more successful, of course, the pressure on them increased. They had to produce results. They needed to, obviously, the program was successful. They had to
move it on to the next level.
Yeah, we went from the pair of legs walking through the Theatre Royal in Drury Lane. Then it went to murderers and their cohorts in Isabadnivy. Full-blown demon attacks and knife throwing and spoon throwing
But there's an awful lot of #demon attacks these days, isn't there?
We've gone back to the Dark Ages.
Massively.
Historically. If you look back through the history of psychical research and the paranormal phenomena, anything that sort of relates to ghosts, and especially what we would label poltergeists today, so noisy apparitions, noisy hauntings,
spontaneous cases,
were always said to be demonic.
Yeah.
And now the Enlightenment came along and science came along, and people started to classify them as poltergeists and as spontaneous cases, and as in some case, some of them were labelled as micro psychokinesis. But now they're bloody demons again. Welcome back to the 15th century.
To be fair, I think we was closer to the mark with the telekinesis side of things.
Well, I think we can blame Zach Bacon for all this.
Zach Bacon.
It's a demon.
Of course it is. And to be fair, it's very annoying for all of us, in all fairness.
Must be annoying to be a demon as well.
Can you imagine? I know, they're like, I'm just sat here minding my own business, having a pint.
I was just trying to possess that. Can't even get a decent possession in now, don't you? Of course, the other cool thing now. Look at the amount of ghost hunters who are now demonologists.
But you could do a course for like $29.99 for that, right?
Yeah, if you wanted to.
So what do you expect? When we've got these things out there for people to believe that they can become a demonologist or a parapsychologist for 30, 40 quid, is it really surprising that people are going,
What's really surprising is anybody wants to be a parapsychologist.
Well, you see, I spoke to Cal Cooper, as you know, spoke to Cal recently.
He's got lovely eyes.
He's got lovely eyes, that's Cal. Bless his little heart. Well, I spoke to him, and in all fairness, when you think that the amount that is actually involved in becoming a parapsych or just a psychologist, not just a psychologist, but you know what I'm saying, It's horrific. 9 times out of 10, the people that are doing these 40 quid courses would never survive one semester at university.
Well, you don't need to go to university. I mean, there's Steve Merrer, there's Dr. Robert Young, although he's dropped the doctor recently.
I was just going to say that. I haven't seen the doctor in a while, in all fairness.
Yeah, I've got proof he used to use it, though. But nonetheless, I mean, the term parapsychologist is different both sides of the Atlantic, because the term parapsychologist is most often used, or was historically often used in America, to label anybody who studied these sort of phenomena, these spontaneous cases. And it still is used like that in America. So often in America, they would call what I do parapsychology, and they would call me a parapsychologist. Now, there's a kind of, you can't really get qualifications as a parapsychologist other than you have degree level or higher qualifications in psychology or a related field and are studying psi related activities as part of your academic work. So Cal obviously does that, as does Sam Winsper.
Yeah, I see. I was going to get on to Anne. Easy there, now, Tiger. Slow it down.
All of those people are also members of the Parapsychological Association, and that's usually now the marker for people calling themselves parapsychologists. Mm-hmm. Now, people often call me a parapsychologist.
I believe you was actually called one earlier on tonight.
It's not unusual. And I don't object, because a lot of what I do relates to paranormal psychology. Mm-hmm. I don't have a degree in psychology. My qualifications are in physics.
Yep.
So you have to roll with it these days. I mean, people are now squabbling as to whether they should call themselves paranormal investigators or ghost hunters. Well, paranormal investigators is a better term. Ghost hunter sounds like you're stalking around at night. Have you seen the paranormal investigators in their body armor and their black fleeces?
Oh yeah.
Who's hunting what?
I mean, in all fairness, though, just going to throw this one out there. When I do go out investigating, I do wear black. But then, in all fairness, you will 9 times out of 10 find me in black anyway.
Well, that's reasonable.
So it's no real difference for me, because I don't particularly own much colour in my wardrobe.
Well, we wear whatever
you want.
Well, it's whatever's appropriate. However, if we are in a large location, or we're there when it's unlit out of necessity, then all of our team will wear high vis. Always have done. And there's a very good reason why they wear high vis. Firstly, it goes back to a case we did a long time ago, where I spent about 3 hours trying to figure out what was the figure walking through the video. We finally realised it was one of the team who'd inadvertently gone the wrong way. They got lost and went the wrong way, so we weren't expecting.
Easily done.
But ghosts don't wear high vis, so we stuck our team in high vis. A, we could find the buggers.
Yeah.
And B, if one blundered past a video, you could go, do you know what? That
stands out like a sore thumb, that, right?
Yeah. So, our team actually wear high vis, the opposite of black.
Mm-hmm. So, moving on to Anne, because obviously you and Anne work together.
We do.
You both, co-founders of Parascience.
That's right.
Now, Anne is a remarkable woman, if I do say so myself. I was trying to actually get her
I'm
on
not going
the
to
show.
disagree with you.
Well, you can, in all fairness.
No, I can't. And I wouldn't dare anyway.
No, she will hunt you down.
Right, yeah, I know.
She knows where you live, so you've had it.
She does.
But she is a remarkable woman. I was trying to get her on here, actually, to discuss EVPs. Mm-hmm. Now, you and Anne working together. Anne's doing a degree at the moment, isn't she?
No, Anne's doing
Oh, she finished? A PhD, sorry.
PhD.
Yeah, PhD, sorry.
Which she should be Dr. Anne, I think, within the next...
It's got to be soon.
It is. I think it's going to be before Easter.
Yeah. So she's doing her PhD, and what's that PhD in?
It's actually the study of electronic voice phenomena. or why you'd have to speak to Anne for the exact title of it, but it relates to the psychology of perception of electronic voices rather than the technical production of electronic voices. Yeah,
which is one of the reasons why I was trying to get Anne on the show, because the amount of people that swear by EVPs when once you know the science behind an EVP, you can discount 99.9% of the EVPs that are...
I like your use of statistics there.
I'm being kind.
No, I mean, I would, because we don't actually have the numbers, do we?
Well, not yet, but...
Because by saying...
Reading between the lines, though...
Yeah, but by saying there are 99.9%, you're implying that there's 0.1%. And we don't know that because to say that there is 0.1%, that would also imply that there is dead people talking to
it. True, and we don't know that. No, we don't know if that is the case or not. But I'm just going on. These are my statistics, by the way, everybody listening. These are not written anywhere.
She's just making them up.
I'm just completely blagging it.
She's using the Richard Felix method.
Oh, brutal. So, oh God, Steve. I'm failing at life right now. The last few weeks between you and Cal. No, it's a good job that this is my last show. Otherwise, I think I'd be sacked after tonight. But anyway, so I'm making up these statistics. So, we're saying that the majority...
Richard's made a career out of doing that.
This is very true. So, going with the science behind it, we are saying that very few, if any, EVPs are legit. Now, when Anne did her talk at the SPR, I was fascinated. So, with all the work that you've done with Anne and in physics, how has that changed your perception of EVPs over the years? Because I'm sure at some point you will have used EVPs.
No, we never have. We have inadvertently recorded what might be classified as an EVP because we didn't hear the actual event.
So it's like the pen falling down the stairs.
We heard that. Well, that was heard, but we've very rarely during investigations, I think on about 5 or 6 occasions, there have been what sound like clear voices on audio recordings where either nobody was present or nobody was known to be speaking. What was also interesting about these very rare occurrences is the voices seem to be commenting on or interacting with some event that was taking place. So, but nobody was aware of them, and they were never. They only revealed themselves on playback of the recording, so they would be classified as EVP phenomena. We've never actually sat down and at a haunted location carried out EVP experiments.
And what's your reason behind that?
Because we're not there to do it. That would be an aside that.
That's going in, assuming that there is already dead people there, right?
We would use it if the original witness had used those methods. And we have, for example, used Ouija boards and seance techniques replicating what the original experiencer reported. For example, at the Hex nightclub in Birkenhead, the phenomena started when a group of workmates stayed behind and did a seance with a Ouija board, and stuff started to take place. So what we did is we got those individuals back again, and we got them to recreate the seance.
Makes sense, right?
While we documented what took place.
Makes sense.
If the original experiencer had said, I was sitting doing, we were doing EVP experiments, then we could legitimately... But we've never been in that situation, so we haven't done it. And we wouldn't just, what should we do? Should we do some EVP? Should we get a K2 out? Should we nail our ears to a table? We wouldn't have any reason to do it, so we wouldn't do it. This idea of... I've been on hundreds and hundreds of investigations with groups around me, and what tends to happen is the whole thing falls apart after an hour because people get bored.
Yep.
And when they get bored, they say, well, what should we do? Oh, well, tell you what, you two go over there and do some EVP. You go and do some table tipping in that room. And you two go and sit over there.
Board up in the attic.
And you two go and eat a bag of crisps.
Now you're talking.
Or go outside for a fag break. Because there is no structure because they are randomly experimenting. We see this with the SLS camera. Mm-hmm. We see this with the full spectrum photography. The original witness saw, if that was the case, saw something, an apparition. So they saw it with their eyes. Yeah. Their eyes do not see infrared, ultraviolet, or unless they've got some strange medical condition, which do exist.
They do, yeah.
But so why are you looking in the infrared?
It's beyond me. Well, it's the same with the SLS camera. Like the amount of times that you see on social media platforms and TV, ghost caught on camera, and it's an SLS. Well, that's not exactly, but it's not a ghost, is it? 9 times out of 10, it's a fire extinguisher, a coat hanger, some sort of.
Well, the SLS camera is actually last year when I was in the States, I had the opportunity to spend a night with Zach's SLS camera, the original SLS camera used on Ghost Adventures.
So the one that was built by Bill Chappell?
The actual one. It was given to me for a whole night to play with a group of. Did you have fun? Yeah, but what we learned and what we showed everybody that night is that we were able to create stick people to order. And the reason we could do that, and we could teach anybody in about 10 seconds how to do it, was that the device is basically dumb. And it's looking for a very, very basic human outline. So what it's looking for is a vertical line, a horizontal line that crosses the vertical line at greater than the midpoint. Mm-hmm. And also some terminator on top, which would indicate the head. Now, we realised very quickly, if you lined it up on something like the corner of a door frame or the corner of a sofa or the corner of a bookcase, anything that's got a strong vertical and a horizontal component with something on top, like it could be anything, it could be a light switch, or it will draw a stick figure because that's all it can do. It cannot do anything but. When it sees these components come together, the software says, put a stick figure there.
But Steve, these stick figures dance.
Well, they do, because what happens is as you move the camera slightly, the camera tracks the stick figure back to the horizontal and vertical object, the parameters in the frame. What was really interesting, though, genuinely interesting, is we had with one lady in particular, we gave her the SLS camera and we showed her how to do it. And she went around the room creating stickmen ghosts all over the place. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards she said, that was really, really interesting. But I still think that what Zach's doing is catching real ghosts with it.
But how?
That's the power of belief and suggestion.
But again, this is it, though. It's people's belief systems. Once you get somebody's belief system in there, it is really, really hard to, dare I say, educate.
Well, it's rather belief is a very powerful driving force, because if you take religious belief, people have martyred themselves.
Have we seen how many wars have been caused over religion?
Exactly, but it shows you the power of belief. And if people genuinely believe that their paranormal experience, that the figure that they're seeing on their SLS monitor, or the voices they're hearing on their EVP, or the lights that are flashing on their K2 is proof of an existence of some supernatural force or something beyond death, then first of all, you are never gonna.
You're never gonna educate, no.
Well, not educate, but you're never gonna break that. It's like telling a Christian that you're wrong and that there's no such thing as God, and he's not going to turn around and go, oh right, okay, and so I won't bother anymore. It's not going to happen.
Stop going to church.
And
I'm going to right now.
Yeah, because that bloke over there who's a scientist told me that God doesn't exist. It's not going to happen. And it doesn't matter how many times you show people and explain things to people. If they really want to believe in something, then that belief is a powerful motivator.
Yeah.
Also, there becomes. I mean, there's a movement within the skeptical community. You see this thing about, well, I'm gonna diss psychics and mediums, and they're just preying on the vulnerable. But in reality, a lot of people get a lot of comfort from going to a psychic and being given support to their belief that the dead auntie Flo or the grandma is fine on the other side and is sending them love and light. And if people want to do that, if people want to spend money doing that,
then
and
that
get
is
comfort,
fully their choice. Who is anybody to take that away from them?
exactly.
They're
a grown adult. If they want to, spend their money on splits or talking to psychics, that's their money.
Exactly. Each to their own. But in all fairness, it can be.
Sorry.
What are you dropping?
I was playing with a magnet.
In all fairness, though, that can be quite frustrating. In all fairness.
Playing with a magnet?
No. Behave yourself. We're going back to the paranormal now.
All right.
So belief systems can be really frustrating when it comes to the paranormal. I know that it drives me mad. Just sometimes I literally just want to shake people and say, "Are you for real?"
Well, one occasion we'd been in Edinburgh doing the Ghost Fest, American Ghost Fest, and we'd been there for a week doing different sort of So You Want to Be a Ghost Hunter talks, lectures, and all sorts of stuff like that. And we had this group of people with us all day, and we'd gone through all of the boring sciencey stuff and the explanations. And then they were allowed to go into Mary King's Close at night and go on a ghost hunt.
It's a fascinating place, in all fairness.
It is. About an hour after we'd started, there's a lovely couple came up to see us and had said that they were communicating with a spirit, and we should come see. So we went down, and they had a video camera set up on a tripod, and they said whenever they ask out, the red light on the back of the camera was flashing. And it was flashing in response to what they were asking. So when they said, "Is there anybody there?" And it would flash the light. What they were actually talking to is the hard drive access light on the back of the camcorder, which was flickering whenever the camcorder wrote to its memory. Now, they were happy doing that.
Yeah.
We were head scratching, and we went away incredibly frustrated that we'd spent 8 hours trying to explain the natural processes by which people can be confused or befuddled by normal things. And then after all of that, they were chattering away quite happily to the red light on the back of the camcorder.
The red light, yeah. I mean, again, if they're happy doing that, then great. But it is frustrating, Stevie. It really is.
I must admit, we did have to take them out and have them killed later.
Well, you see, that's that one solved, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
#demon, have you been hunted down yet?
No, but I've lost count at how many times I've been threatened with bad karma. Or demon attack, or not protecting myself. Quite a few years ago, I was on an investigation, and the medium who was in charge of the investigation said that everybody had to gather themselves to be psychically protected. Now, I don't think I've ever been psychically protected in my life, but on this occasion, they insisted that I joined in, and everybody sort of joined in a rough circle. And we were told to imagine ourselves covered in, bathed in blue light, protective blue light from head to toe. And then she opened her eyes, and I got sternly told off because I was shining a blue torch. And she looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" I've just got no imagination, so I thought I'd use a real blue light.
I'm actually bathing myself in a blue light.
We were at another investigation, and there were two lead investigators from this group. I won't name them, but they had got themselves into a right pickle over. They'd been doing a Ouija board for about half hour, and they didn't know how to close it because the group's resident psychic wasn't there that night, and they didn't know the procedure for shutting down the board. So they were in the middle of this discussion about doing it when I walked over, picked up the board, and walked off with it. At which point, they thought, I'd opened the portals to hell. You're gonna die. No, it's a piece of cardboard.
I mean, we have to remember the Ouija board was a parlour game, right?
Still is. You can buy it in Toys R Us in
Oh
America.
yeah, you can still buy it in Toys R Us.
Hey, have you seen the new Barbie edition?
No, is there a Barbie edition? I must get one of those.
Bright pink.
I must get one of those.
Check it out. It's on Amazon.
So, Steve, speaking of things being on Amazon, you've done a few books yourself, haven't you? As you said at the start of the show, you have written a few books yourself.
I never intended to. That was an accident.
So how did that accident come about?
Well, it came about because I was doing ghostology as a sort of... it started off with something I was doing with Kieran O'Keefe, but which developed into ghostology, which was like a one-day or weekend course helping people to develop their ghost hunting, to get them to get better evidence to make the skeptics' lives a misery. That was the real reason.
Yeah.
Give Cal a hard time. And because people are basically, I used to hate writing notes. So I thought, well, I don't expect anybody else to write notes, so I'll do the notes in course notes for them. And I used to give them the course notes to save them bothering writing stuff down. Because if they're writing stuff down, they're probably not listening to what you're saying anyway. And then we got over to America, and I needed a copy of the course notes because I'd forgotten to take a copy with me. So I printed off an electronic copy on a friend's computer in the States. And he was then complaining about all of his computer ink being used up because the course notes ran to about 200 pages.
Yeah.
And he was not a happy bunny. And he said, why don't you write a freaking book? So I thought, actually, I kind of shouldn't I? So that's how ghostology was born. And it still is the course notes for ghostology study days. Paracoustics was because Cal and I realised that Cal was, of course, had just written Telephone Calls from the Dead and was fascinated by this electronic communication via the telephone and other electronic devices, and was starting off her work on electronic voice phenomena. And I, of course, my PhD is studying infrasound and low-frequency sound.
Yep.
And we realised that often we were ending up having to reference, ourselves, because nobody else had done the work. So we went to people who were looking into related areas like acoustic raps and knocks from Dr. Barry Colvin, and the shamanic use of sound. And we thought, we'll put all this together into a useful book that will help people understand the relationship between sound and the paranormal experience. Mm-hmm. So that became Paracoustics. And then I got fed up with the SPR a few years ago because they were ignoring paranormal investigators, ghost hunters, because the whole thing had been taken over by parapsychologists. Yeah. And we were sort of pushed to the sideline, and it was all very, very difficult. And spontaneous cases, to give it the posh title, ghost hunting, to give it my more preferred title, had just been kicked into the long grass. We'd had Tony Cornell and Alan Gould and Maurice Gross and these legends of spontaneous case investigation, but they'd all sadly passed on or withdrawn from active investigations.
Yeah.
And the parapsychologists had taken over. In fact, I did a talk at the SPR called "The Lunatics Have Taken Over the Asylum," and then finally realised that in actual fact there was a huge disconnect between academia and the frontline ghost investigator, the amateur investigator. Mm-hmm. And if you look into areas like astronomy and archaeology, and they work very closely with academia, and a lot of the great discoveries have been made by the amateurs, and then science has come along to assist. But in ghost hunting, you've got this disconnect because the academics don't really think that ghost hunting's care in the community. And the ghost hunters have got no real resources to draw upon, and so their only resource is then television and social media. And so they end up in a spiral of bad practice begatting worse practice begatting bizarre practice, and then you end up with demons. And I realised that the SPR and the Ghost Club and ASAP have got fantastic resources that are available to all of these groups, but nobody really knows about the SPR anymore. When we were, it's a bit depressing when you have to explain to somebody what the SPR are.
I thought you had to wait to be invited to both still. I didn't actually realise that you could just join, in all fairness. I mean, needless to say, I am a member of every organisation going now, I think.
And that's the problem with the SPR and the Ghost Club, because although membership is available to everybody, and so are the resources that they have, they've never really engaged with the amateurs.
With general
they've walled themselves up in their ivory towers, living in the past. You think back to Enfield, you think back to Crawley, you think back to all of those legendary cases. That in all of those cases, when the media wanted experts, the first person they picked up the phone to was the Society for Psychical Research.
Yeah, and now it's the nearest team on Facebook.
Now it's Mark Smith.
So then you come along, Steve, and you update the guidance notes for investigators of spontaneous cases.
Well, that was the first. I went along and I complained bitterly at the 2016 SPR conference in a paper entitled "What Have the Romans Ever Done for Us?" And that raised a few heckles within the SPR, and that led to a ghost hunting study day in 2017, and a proposal from me to say, look, have you seen your notes for investigators of spontaneous cases, which were last updated in 1968, and have some really useful information, but some really weird stuff as well. Like, if you think your witness is hoaxing you, then put a bag over their head and tie their hands together. It's just not done anymore. You can't do it. No. It would be better if you could, but you're not allowed to.
No, exactly. It's frowned upon, right?
Yeah, I mean, and also it took no account of the new technology or societal changes. You can't imagine it would be good practice today for two middle-aged men, in the case of Maurice Gross and Guy Playfair,
to be left alone with a child.
To be left alone in a child's bedroom with a sleeping child.
Yeah.
Whilst back then it was considered to be perfectly normal, now it wouldn't be. So they needed updating, and I said, look, they do need work. It was something that needed it. So the SPR said to me, well, go on then, do it.
It's been quite a success, in all fairness.
It's been a fantastic success, and it's surprised me, actually. It was never it's not a you must do this. This is not the SPR dictating to people what to do. This is the SPR saying, here are some good guidelines for good practice, foundations, if you like, for good practice. And if you choose to adopt them, then you will up your game, and you will present more challenging evidence to make Richard Wiseman and Chris French, make their life difficult. Because it's very, very easy for a skeptic to knock down the sort of evidence that modern ghost hunters are putting up. And it shouldn't be. It doesn't take a great deal for the investigator to show that what they're doing is to a good standard.
I mean, is it not? I mean, I've always looked at it as in, say I was sat doing a math equation, I would show my working out. So why should it be any different?
Well, it shouldn't be. And we all learned at school how to do science experiments, didn't we? We listed the question. The method, the equipment we were using, what we did, and then the experiment, and then the conclusion. Now, ghost hunters go along, they record something at an investigation, and they give it to their photo expert, who sticks it on Photoshop and twiddles with it till it looks like what they wanted it to look like in the first place.
Exactly.
And then they run to the Daily Mirror, because they think having it in the Daily Mirror or having it on YouTube or Facebook gives them credibility. It doesn't.
No.
You won't see, in fact, nowadays, for the last 15 more years, Parascience deliberately stopped publishing to public media any investigations. It served no purpose, because the only person we're answerable to is the client.
Yeah.
So we have a copy of the investigation notes and reports. They have a copy. And importantly, we give the client everything because morally, we've always considered it to be their property.
Well, it is theirs.
Yeah, I mean, we won't publish it, we won't publicise it, we won't do anything with it because it's not ours. If they what they choose to do with it is their business because it's their house, it's their workplace, it's their ghost, if you like. Exactly.
Now, speaking of papers and media, etc., on the Ghost Club and SPR collaboration workshop day,
you
put a beautiful picture of me on a slide.
I did.
I look stunning, Steve.
I know. But it was illustrating a point that was making that the newspaper had done.
Oh, God, yeah, completely. I mean, you said that anyway in the spontaneous cases. You know, media will change whatever you say to make it fit however they want it to fit.
And it actually, the slide related not to what you were saying, but to the headline, which was
massively,
what was it? There were 12,000 professional paranormal investigators in the UK, most of whom are women. Well,
you see, I would never class myself as a professional at all because I'm not. I am just Emma going off on a ghost hunt, right? Plain and simple.
Exactly.
I'm
but
as
you do
real
class
as
yourself as a woman.
Oh, well, only occasionally. It depends whether I'm sat with a pint or not.
I don't know. I saw you in the jumpsuit. That jumpsuit had lumps in it, I tell you.
That was just the rolls, mate. That was the rolls. But, I mean, what was that title of those slides? What was it called?
What, for the talk?
Yeah.
Crap ghosts and crap ghost hunters.
So I'm sat there, and then all of a sudden, my beautiful picture, it was a beautiful picture, everyone, just saying. I certainly don't look like that right now, but my beautiful picture appears, and I'm like, uh-oh, this is awkward. This is, like, really awkward. Like, hi.
Yeah, but you were a long way removed from the title.
Oh, massively. Yeah. I mean, I would argue all day long. I mean, I come across, I've said this 1,000 times, I come across the idiot, but I'm so far from an idiot, it is unreal. And I like it when people underestimate what knowledge I've actually got, because then when I do bring out, as Kerry would call it, when I do bring out the smarts, it shocks people. And I like that. I like to be underestimated.
Really?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I love it when people underestimate me because it's the whole shock factor, isn't it?
I've never really thought about it. I didn't underestimate you because I never.
You can't try that now anyway because everybody already knows that you're smart. So it's too late for you. You can't try it.
You would think so. and certainly, if you look back to the mid-seasons of Most Haunted, when it was the mega hit show.
Yeah.
So Series 7, 8, 9.
You see, speaking of that, I got a double whammy from you that day because not only was I in your bad ghost hunters, but I also worked with Most Haunted. So I was like, great.
Yeah. But I was on the show.
This is very true.
Now, I was on probably the worst paranormal show ever, which was Paranormal Investigation Live. From that Scottish castle, which it spawned Barry Guy.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
In fact, he was such a brilliant ghost hunter, as I recall. After the first night of production, they very nearly canned the remaining 2 nights. Just saying.
So,
do you know? Actually, I'll tell you a Barry Guy true story. This took place at Mingus Castle, Paranormal Investigation Live. They had, it wasn't a K2. It was some device that they had with them anyway. And they made a bleeping noise.
Uh-huh.
But they'd been out after getting lost in the woods in the pouring rain. They came back in looking like drowned rats, and then had to go into the bedroom where apparently hundreds and hundreds of years ago, somebody had a child which was snatched from the mother at the moment of birth and flung into the fire.
Oh, wow.
So they put this device into the fireplace. Now, this device, there was still water dripping out the bottom of it. It was so wet. And when they turned it on, the electronics and the little noise speaker just started to howl. It was an Ovilus.
Why?
It was an Ovilus.
Oh, was it?
And
it
just went into straight scream mode. It was just a horrendous electronic noise from
Did
this
it have
broken.
the dictionary mode on too?
It had nothing was working properly because it was basically had just been submerged in water for the last half hour. At which point Barry announced that was the screaming cries of the deceased baby that was being flung into the fireplace. I went, oh, and it's crying as well, Barry. Oh, it's wet itself now.
Was that the baby or the bit of...
The ghost of the baby must have, yeah.
Oh, maybe it was a demonic baby and it took possession over the equipment.
No, the demons were in a different... I think they were the next night.
Oh, damn it.
But they had to go from one place inside the castle to this location outside in the forest, in the woods, where there was... I can't remember why they were going, but probably because it made good television. But they had to go there, and they got lost on the way there. And I remember they only had to go about 50 yards up this path. And it was on the radio, and they're going, we can't find the tree and the point. How do we find it? And the director, fortunately, it was in the middle of an advert, the director shouted, follow the effing yellow camera cable.
I mean, in all fairness, though, I can't say anything about that because I am one of these people that get lost following a sat-nav.
This was a very thick yellow, it was about a 1-inch thick yellow camera lighting umbilical cord.
Umbilical cord?
Yeah, it was massive. It was about an inch thick.
Oh,
Steve. They couldn't have found a way out of it. Honestly, I'll tell you, that group couldn't have investigated the way out of a damp paper bag.
Oh, you do make me laugh. So, Steve, we are coming to the end of the show. So what have you got coming up? Are you going to be doing any more talks? Because I love your talks. They do make me feel
I will be.
Even though I might appear on some.
You will.
You know.
You will. You will be appearing in Kilmarnock on August the 3rd, 4th.
Is that the same talk as what you did at the SPR?
Pretty much.
Oh, can you just obviously say that, Gemma's beautiful and she's not a bad girl?
I'll add a caption.
Yeah, thank you. Just for me.
That one will be there. Then later in September, I will be off to the States for 2 weeks to do more talks, more presentations, more of the same. Mm-hmm. And then we will be reprising the ghost hunting workshops, the SPR workshops.
So are they going to be changing slightly? Because obviously I've done the last one.
Yes.
So it's going to be changing. It's going to be updating with the times, so to speak.
They will be different, and they will. First of all, because they've only been in London, there was quite a lot of people from up north.
Yeah, from up north, near me.
Up north,
yeah.
where they keep whippets and ferrets. They haven't seen the original one, so we can use the original one up north.
Up north, yeah, you have to come up north, Steve.
But in 2020, there are plans to develop the workshop into a full weekend investigator training workshop.
Now, you see, I think that's a good idea.
And that will be under the auspices of the SPR.
I quite like that. And in all fairness, it's the SPR getting out there with the ghost hunting community too.
Exactly. Now, that won't be the same format as the one-day workshops that we were running in 2019.
I should hope not, because a lot of people don't understand.
And we'll include for the first time, under the SPR's auspices, the opportunity to go on a ghost hunt.
Oh.
To put your newly found skills into practice in a supported and guided manner.
Oh, I might have to come to that, Steve. You can support me and guide me.
It will be very cool.
It does sound good, actually.
You're going to wear the jumpsuit?
Only on a weekend. If it's not a weekend, I'm not wearing it.
Then if you take the mickey, go, no, look, uniform.
Oh, do you know what? That whole weekend was quite funny, actually, Steve, wasn't it? Because we was outside. Who was we outside with? There was a few of us stood outside.
Yeah, we can't mention Greg.
and you came up and said, who did you say it to? What would you say was quite important to a paranormal investigator.
Observation skills.
Would you say that who was we talking to? Would you say that observation is quite an important?
Oh, when Bernard was wearing John's glasses.
Yes, Bernard was. Yes,
and then you came up and said, "What about your observational skills?" Well, because I hadn't seen the slides in how long, and they're behind me on the wall anyway.
Yeah,
I wrote that talk a year before it was done.
I was like, "Says you know, I'm on your slides." But the worst thing is, you already knew it was me anyway.
Yeah, but you weren't wearing the jumpsuit, were you?
No, because
and holding the thermometer.
Hey, my thermometer comes everywhere with me. It was in my handbag.
It wasn't.
It was.
We checked.
You never know when you might have a temperature.
We used an SLS camera to look inside your bag.
You'd be better off with a K2 meter inside my handbag. Anyway, Steve, we are right out of time. Thank you so much for being my guest tonight and being my last ever guest.
I've killed the show.
I know, right? It was all going so well, and then Steve came along. But seriously, thank you, Steve. It's
been a pleasure.
It's always entertaining, if nothing else, to speak to you, young man.
I've never been called young, but not for a long time.
I've not been Specsavers in a while.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
And to everybody listening at home, thank you so much for joining me tonight and over the last year.
And don't bother tuning in next week.
Yeah, don't tune in next week.
Because Jem will be in the pub.
Well, just because I'm not here, don't mean to say that there might not be somebody else in my place. So you never know. True. You might be able to tune in next week. Unfortunately, I won't be here, but thank you so much for listening in over the last year, guys. It has been an absolute pleasure to hopefully entertain you all. So you're being sacked,
or have you retired?
Well, no, I got sacked, but we was going to have that conversation off air.
Oh, right.
Because I'm so shit. Kerry was like, "Oh, get her out of here.
Wait,
get her
none
out."
of that, lady. I'm not having you say that on air.
That's just confirming, everyone. No, I am only joking. I haven't really been sacked. I am actually having to leave because my actual full-time job is taking up so much time that I can't actually physically put in the effort into the shows that I want to. So I don't want to let anybody down, and I definitely don't want to let myself down. So that is the real reason why I am out of here.
I would just like to say thank you from everybody at Parasearch Radio for being such an awesome presenter for the last year.
Hey, let's hear it for Gemma. Seriously, I know what it's like to be a radio presenter. It's bloody hard work.
Well, you do it yourself, love, don't you?
Yeah, it's bloody hard work.
It is. But I don't think people realise quite how much you have to put into shows. And I mean, speaking to you tonight's been quite easy, in all fairness, Steve, because I already know you, so it's easier. But when you've got somebody that you don't know and they are, I don't know, like a specialist in their field, then you have to put the effort in. You have to do the research, and you can't just do a quick Wikipedia search. You have to go in depth, and it's not easy.
I'll tell you, the trick is get an American guest on.
I've done that a few times.
Ask them one question at the start.
Yeah, and it's gone the whole hour.
And then the whole hour's gone while they talk about themselves. When we do Ghost Chronicles, which is tomorrow night live from 9, if we get an American guest on, I just, normally ask them, like, tell us about yourself and what you're doing. And then I'll mute my microphone and I'll sit here and I'll clean the office. And sort out, loads of emails and bits of paper and all sorts of other clutter that's building up. And they'll just ramble on. Then I just remember to have to turn my mic on at the ad break in the middle, just to say, and now we're coming up to the ad break. They'll just rabbit on for hours. They're fantastic.
Well, honestly, right, we are over now. So, guys, you can listen to Parasearch Radio pretty much every night of the week, 9 o'clock on Spreaker.
Except on Tuesdays.
And you can also find them over on YouTube too. And from me, it really is good night and goodbye.
There we are.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.